So I'm gonna ask for the Lord's blessing upon our study tonight. We're gonna be in the Book of Ruth. We're gonna look at the Book of Ruth, which I greatly enjoy. The Book of Ruth. It is it's a delightful narrative of a wonderful account, and I enjoy it tremendously. So with that, let's address our Lord and ask Him to bless our time together here on a Wednesday night. Heavenly Father, sweet Father, thank you so much for this church and for everyone that's here tonight, Lord. And I just pray that you would bless them. Bless them for being here, Lord. Bless our time together, Lord. And we just seek you, Lord. We seek your favor and we seek your love. And I just thank you for everyone that is here and the fellowship that we have. And I just pray that you'd bless our time in your word tonight. I pray that you would use this humble vessel to glorify you, Lord. You are amazing and beyond comprehension and worthy of all praise. And I just am so in awe with you, Lord, and I cannot express it enough, Lord. And I just thank you for hearing us and for loving us, Lord. And I just pray that you bless our time, and I pray this in your Son's wonderful name. Amen. So, Ruth, the reason why I picked Ruth starts off in verse 1 of chapter 1. Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled. So, when I think of the judges ruled, what do you guys think of when it comes to the book of Judges? Ups and downs. Good time for Israel? Not really. So, I mean, the way I kind of, Joshua's conquest, and Judges is chaos, and downhill. And a lot of the things that you can read in Judges, especially when it gets that crazy story at the end that sounds kind of like Sodom and Gomorrah, it's a bad time for the children of God. It's a bad time for the Israelites, and it's not good. So there's a couple phrases in there. We'll dip back into Judges real quickly for a couple verses, and we'll get back here to Ruth. So just going right back, last verse of Judges, chapter 21, verse 25. In those days, there was no king in Israel, and everyone did what was right in his own eyes. Does that sound like any kind of culture you know today? Right? I know. And so, as we study prophecy, I know that's kind of one of the things that we're always looking at is how the stage is being set, and I like how Jimmy DeYoung put it. The props are putting out, and the actors are getting in place, and we're just waiting for the show to begin. And of course, we get the balcony seats, and I'm excited about that. Amen. But there's a couple other verses that I wanted to go to. So let's bounce back to chapter 3 of the book of Judges, verse 12. There's this phrase that gets kind of repeated, and it starts in verse 12. It gets repeated a lot in here. So as everyone's doing right in their own eyes, in verse 12, chapter 3, it says, and the children of Israel did again did evil in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord strengthened Eglon, king of Moab, against Israel, because they had done evil in the sight of the Lord. Right? So everyone's doing what's right in their own eyes, and they're not really looking at what's right in the eyes of the Lord. And everyone's doing evil in the sight of the Lord, and that definitely sounds like today. I was kind of laughing because I like to send gifs and memes as I was texting, and I wanted to send one that said panic, and it kind of, as I usually type in 3 letters and wait for things to auto-populate and then pick it, and the first suggestion was pansexual flag, and I was just like, whoa, why that? And I was just like, ew, gross, no, I see, panic, thank you, moving on. I was scared, very scared, but it's just, that's our culture. Everyone doing what's right in their own eyes. The moral compass is out the door, and there's a lot of lost things. And that's what the book of Judges is. And it's not good. If we go to chapter 10 and verse 6 in chapter 10, again, Jair died, verse 5, and was burned in Kaman. And then the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord, and served the Baals and the Ashtaroths, the gods of Syria, the gods of Sidon, the gods of Moab, the gods of the people of Ammon, and the gods of the Philistines. And they forsook the Lord and did not serve him. So the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he sold them into the hands of the Philistines and into the hands of the people of Ammon. And it didn't go well for them, once again. So there's that. It's a cycle of, it's a downward spiral. It gets worse. But the Judges is all about the cycle of Israel's enjoying life, forgetting God, getting sinful. God brings in some people group to oppress them, humble them. They repent. They look for God. God delivers them. And then we do it again. And every time it seems to get worse. In fact, when you read the last story in the last couple chapters of the book of Judges, like some of the stuff you read and you're like, no way. This is what horror movies are made out of. This can't happen. It's crazy what happens. But that is the context of the book of Ruth. And when Ruth was written, Ruth was clearly written in chapter 4. It talks about the line of David. David is king at this point, and so it's written a little bit later, and it's kind of reflecting back. And I think they definitely wanted to highlight that the fact that this wonderful story of faithfulness took place during the time of Judges, when it was chaos and people doing evil in the sight of the Lord and doing what was right in their own eyes because there was no king. And when they say no king, I really think that they also include God, who is supposed to be their king. And so I'm going to continue on in the book of Ruth. And one of the reasons why I wanted to highlight the book of Ruth is because I know in America it can be very much the same thing. But here is this wonderful story of Ruth and Boaz and Naomi and them being faithful and being godly people during that time. And I just wanted to encourage you today with this wonderful story of good things happening to people during the bad times of the Judges. So, and the one thing I really want us to pay attention to is the speech of Naomi, Ruth, and Boaz. It's pretty neat when you get listening to them and how they talk to each other and how they just relate to each other. It's also, it was kind of convicting when I was doing my study about this, and I'll share with you from that too. So, getting back to Ruth. As it was in the days when the Judges ruled that there was a famine in the land. Right? So we're going from bad to worse. There's a famine in the land, and a certain man from Bethlehem, right? Bethlehem, that special little city in Judah, went to dwell in the country of Moab. Right? Moab, good people, bad people. Bad people, right? God used them to oppress them in the book of Judges. When you read about it in Numbers 25, you'll read about how the Israelites, when they were wandering in the desert, were committing harlotry with them. In chapter 10, we talked about their gods, the Baals and the Ashtaroths. And so they picked up and they went to Moab, where clearly it should have been known that the Moabites were not appreciated, right? I know in the book of Judges too, the one thing it was talking about is how it angered the Lord when they were taking wives from the different tribes, and we're about to read that. So this man, his wife, and his 2 sons leave the promised land, leave Bethlehem. Why would you ever want to leave Bethlehem? And head to Moab. But he did. And the name of the man was Elimelech. And his wife was Naomi, and the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. And they were Ephrathites of Bethlehem, Judah, and they went to the country of Moab and remained there. Right? So there's famine in the land, and they looked at circumstances, and they said it's better in Moab, and they didn't look towards the Lord. And then Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. Now they took wives of the women of Moab, also not something that was really smiled upon by the Lord. And the name was Orpah, and the other name was Ruth. And they dwelt there about 10 years. 10 years. 10 years, no children. Then both Mahlon and Chilion also died. So the women survived her 2 sons and her husband. So here's Naomi with 2 daughter-in-laws, no husband, no children in a foreign land. It's not good for Naomi. In the culture of the time, it is bad for her. And so she arose with her daughter-in-law that she might return from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab that the Lord had visited his people by giving them bread. The famine is over. It's time to go home. Therefore she went out from the place where she was, and her 2 daughters-in-law with her, and they went on the way to return to the land of Judah. And Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, Go, return each to your mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you, as you have dealt with the dead and with me. And the Lord grant you may find rest, each in the house of her husband. So she kissed them, and they lifted up their voices and wept. This is like a beautiful scene, right? So dire circumstances. They've got to know each other for 10 years. Her husband's gone. Their husbands are gone. And even then, there's this concern of Naomi for these 2 girls. It's like these 2 young women. It's like, I'm a widow. I'm in trouble. You are young enough. Go back home. Go back home and make sure you're taken care of. And Naomi's concern is for the 2 and their welfare. And she's ready to head back alone. I can't even imagine what it'd be like to be traveling from Moab to Jerusalem on foot by myself, much less as a widow. Especially when you got the time of the judges, when people are doing right in their own eyes, and you got the men that you can read about in chapter 20 that are doing all sorts of bad things. So Naomi said, and they said to her, so the daughters replied, Surely we will return with you to your people. But Naomi said, Turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Are there still sons in my womb that you may be your husbands? She's talking about the kinsman redeemer there. Do you guys know about the kinsman redeemer? Okay, so we'll get in that. That's what the whole book of Ruth is all about, is the kinsman redeemer. So if a man died and he didn't have a child, an heir to inherit the land, the next relative up was supposed to marry his widow, and their firstborn child would be the heir of the previous person's land. And that's what Naomi's saying. I don't have another child for you to marry, and even if I did, you'd have to wait till he was 18 or proper age to marry him, and by then, you could have a different life. So she asked in verse 13, Would you wait for them till they were grown? Would you restrain yourselves from having husbands? No, my daughters, for it grieves me very much for your sake that the hand of the Lord has come out against me. See, she also is known, she's like saying God's punishing her for, she's not mad about it. She's like, the hand of the Lord is against me. And I don't want that for you. It's this kind consideration. I followed my husband here. We shouldn't have been here. This is my punishment. Go. And I just love how she cares for them. And then even them in their first response, they want to be with her. They're sweet and they're kind and they want to be with her. And she said, Look, your sister-in-law, I'm skipping a verse. So 14, Then they lifted up their voices and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. And she said, Look, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law. But Ruth said, Entreat me not to leave you, or to turn back from following after you. For wherever you go, I will go. And wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts you and me. Ruth is little determined. She is ready to go. And I love speculating about why Ruth is so earnest in going. And I know that when she claims that, and your God will be my God, I think that says a lot about her faith and about what happened in those 10 years of coming to know Naomi, because I know the women would have been hanging out together, and I'm hoping Naomi was glorifying God to them. I believe she was. And so she asked that. And when she saw that she was determined to go with her, she stopped speaking to her, right? It's like, Naomi just kind of quit. She's like, all right, fine, you're coming with me, right? It stopped her in her tracks. Like, she was insistent on them going back, and then she's like, your people will be my people, your God will be my God. I'm going to die with you. Where you are buried, I will be. And that was it. Naomi accepted it, and stopped speaking to her. I like that. It's just like all of a sudden silence, and the two of them went until they came to Bethlehem. And it happened that when they had come to Bethlehem, that all the city was excited because of them, and the women said, is this Naomi? I love it. It's like they return home, they're recognized, they're noticed. Naomi is, at least, Ruth wouldn't have been, but there's this excitement. Hey, you're home, you're back, you're great. I love this because it's a time of the judges, and clearly they made a bad choice to go to Moab. And instead of having them come back and be like, oh, you're back from Moab? Oh, that was a good choice. Where's your husband? They're excited to see her. They're crying out to her. Hey, it's Naomi, right? And there's this excitement to see her. And then I love Naomi's honest response. But she said to them, do not call me Naomi, call me Mara. Mara, which is the word for bitter. For the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. I went out full, and the Lord has brought me home again empty. Why do you call me Naomi, since the Lord has testified against me, and the Almighty has afflicted me? So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, who returned from the country of Moab. Now they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of barley harvest. I like that. I think I'm surprised he didn't try to sneak another couple Moabs in there, right? Really highlighting the fact that Ruth is from Moab. She's a foreigner in this land, and not only that, but the Moabs and the Moabites and the Israelites kind of get along like a couple of brothers and sisters, right? And even then, more importantly, even as Naomi is talking about how God afflicted her, she still is not blaspheming him. She is calling him the Almighty, and it's not like she's saying he's unfair, unjust, none of that. She's like, the Lord has dealt with me. He's testified against me, and the Almighty has afflicted me. She's looking at everything as the sovereign hand of the Lord and giving God credit for being a sovereign Lord, and she's not happy about it, but she's not mad at him about it. She's not happy because she changed her name to bitter, but there's a difference between bitterness and anger. I know bitter is a dangerous root that leads to a lot of sin, but Naomi here still is not dishonoring God. So we're going to change. We're going to turn the page, right? Because we go from famine to barley harvest. We go from them leaving the land, coming back home. We go from despair to here's a seed of hope in the beginning of the barley harvest. Now, do you guys know much about the harvest seasons and which season's first? So the barley harvest would have been one of the first harvests, and then there would have been several harvests after that. So this would have been a good time to come home, because the tradition is that they would have had to go into the fields and glean from the extra grain, and so there would have been a lot of grain for them to glean. This is like the perfect time to come home, so that they could get enough food to store up for what they needed. So chapter 2. Right? And so chapter 1, we see this even in the despair of chapter 1, there is still kindness and love and consideration and weeping and hard choices being made of Orpah turning back and Ruth staying with, and people caring about people, even though it is the time of the judges when everyone's doing right in their own eyes, which was evil in the sight of the Lord. So there was a relative of Naomi's husband, a man of great wealth, of the family, Elimelech. His name was Boaz. So Ruth the Moabitess said to Naomi, please let me go to the field and glean heads of grain after him, in whose sight I may find favor. And she said to her, go, my daughter. I think this is great. Ruth is asking for permission to go get food, which they will need to survive, and she asked for permission, and Naomi says, go. And I think that's very sweet. It's like, it's very kind and considerate. Then she left and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers, and she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the family of Elimelech. Now behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem, and he said to the reapers, the Lord be with you. It depends on which version you have. Some people have, may the Lord bless you. I think some texts might say that. And they answered him, the Lord bless you. I love this. Boaz's first words when he steps on the scene are, may the Lord bless you, right? He's coming up to his workers, and he's back from his journey, and the first thing he says is, may the Lord bless you, right? This was really convicting to me because I can come home from work, and the first words out of my mouth to my own children are always, may the Lord bless you. It's let Daddy get his coat off and have a second because Daddy's tired sometimes, and it doesn't come out like that. But I know, it's really, I just love it. Like Boaz's first words on the scene when he gets there is, Lord be with you. And I think he's actually not just saying this as like some people say, OMG, but he's heart, desiring that the Lord blesses his servants, the reapers. And I believe that the reapers honestly want the Lord to bless him as well. And there's this overwhelming joy of God. And then Boaz said to his servants, who was in charge of the reapers, whose young woman is this? He's intrigued. I like it. Boaz is noticing stuff, noticing what's going on, and he notices this new woman, and he takes note of her. And so when the servants in charge of the reapers answered and said, it is the young Moabite woman who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab. There we go again, emphasizing her Moabiteness from the country of Moabite. Where else do Moabites come from, right? And she said, please let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. So she came and was continued from morning until now, though she rested a little in the house. Then Boaz said, Ruth, you will listen, my daughter. You will listen, my daughter, will you not? Do you not glean in another? Do not go. Come on, glasses. Do not go to glean in another field, nor go from here, but stay close by my young women. Let your eyes be on the field which they reap, and go after them. Have I not commanded the young men not to touch you? And when you are thirsty, go to the vessels and drink from them, from what the young men have drawn. So she fell on her face, bowed down to the ground, and said to them, why have I found favor in your eyes that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner? So, again, Boaz takes notice, gets this report, and comes and addresses her, and he says, hey, stick in these fields, stick with my women, go behind my men, stay here, I'm going to take care of you. I already told my men not to touch you. And if you get thirsty, refresh yourself, go get some water that they drew. I think that's pretty impressive that, I was like, don't even worry about drawing water, drink from what they drawn, right? Which I think is, that's not just a minor detail that got thrown in there. And I just love her response, right? Here's this response of gratitude. Boaz didn't have to do that. And she fell on her face and bowed. I'd be a little embarrassed, but and then she asked, why have I found favor in your eyes? She even understood that her place as a Moabite in Israel, she should not be finding favor. She shouldn't. She was a Moabite. And Boaz answered and said to her, it has been fully reported to me all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, and how you have left your father and your mother and the land of your birth, and have come to a people whom you did not know before. The Lord repay your work, and a full reward be given to you by the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings you have come for refuge. It's kind of funny, like in here, Boaz is like acknowledging her that she has left that. He's seeing her beyond the Moabitess. You have left that. You've left your father, you left your mother, and you came to care for your mother-in-law, which was virtuous. It was wonderful that she did that. And he loved that she did that. And more importantly, he recognized that she also came to take refuge in Naomi's God. Your God will be my God. And so you have the people of God blessing each other. And it's just sweet in this speech, right? And just gratitude and recognition, right? Because Boaz is like, look, I love what I see you're doing. You're working hard. You're taking care of your mom, right? And it's like when they reported that she took a rest in the house, he didn't go, she rested where? It didn't even bother her. It's like, you're working hard to take care of your mom, and he just calls it out. He just wants, he praises her for it, and he asks the Lord to repay her for her work, the full reward given to you by the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. He's even praising her for coming to take refuge in the God of Israel. And then she continues, she answers back, let me find favor in your sight, my Lord, for you have comforted me and have spoken kindly to your maidservant, though I am not like one of your maidservants. And Boaz said to her at mealtimes, come here, eat of the bread, and dip your piece of the bread in the vinegar. So she sat beside the reapers, and he passed parched grain to her, and she ate, and she was satisfied, and kept some back. And she's keeping some back for Naomi, or Mara, at this point. And when she rose up to glean, Boaz commanded his young men, saying, let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not reproach her. She wasn't supposed to glean among the sheaves, and he's like, do it, and not only that, don't say anything. Also let grain from your bundles fall purposely for her. Leave it that she may glean, and do not rebuke her. Right? So it's like, he's like, give it to her. Fill up her basket, and don't rebuke her. Give her, and let her enjoy. So she gleaned in the field until evening, and beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. Anybody know what an ephah is? I think I read somewhere it's like 60 pounds. I heard it was a lot. And when she said beat out, that definitely was hard work. From what I understand, getting some barley out of the sheaf was not an easy task. I haven't really tried. Anybody here try to get some barley out of a sheaf? No? Okay. I'm just going to assume. I watch big combines like tear that stuff up, so they make it look easy, right? But anyways, but I love this part because it's like, Boaz is taking care of her. Boaz is inviting her in the mealtime. Even though she's not like one of his maidservants, Boaz is looking beyond that. Boaz is looking in the heart, right? He's not looking at her skin, not looking at her for being a Moabitess. She's looking at the heart and seeing a woman that is loving the Lord and looking towards the Lord for refuge and blessing her for that. And so she gleaned. She worked hard. He gave her opportunity and she took it. That's the other beautiful thing about this is like, they were dropping it, and I love that too, because the men followed. The men did what Boaz said. They let her glean. They dropped the stuff for her, and she got all that, and she worked for that. And I'm sure everybody knew what was going on too, right? And even when she held back some bread from the lunch table, there was no rebuke for that, right? So she gleaned, and she got her ephah of barley. And then she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. So she brought out and gave to her what she had kept back after she had been satisfied, some of the bread that she had. And her mother-in-law said to her, where have you gleaned today? Naomi is a very savvy woman. She's catching on. She's seeing all this that she shouldn't have, and is like, where'd you get all this? And where have you gleaned today, and where did you work? Blessed be the one who took notice of you. I love it too. Not did you steal this? But blessed be the one that took notice of you. Her first assumption that was somebody gave it to her. And it's like knowing the character. So they must have known each other really well by this time, being two widows, traveling, journeying together, and just seeing the character of Ruth. Naomi trusted her, and there wasn't even a thought of that. It wasn't even thought anything about that, but honestly wanted to know who had gave it to her. And so, blessed be the one. Not only that, but she's seeking blessing for the one that took notice of her. So she told her mother-in-law whom she had worked and said, the man's name with whom I work today is Boaz. And Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, blessed be the Lord who has not forsaken his kindness to the living and the dead. It's kind of, I love that. Naomi's first response is to start praising God. And I like it too because we're calling her Naomi and not Mara. So, blessed be God, for he has not forsaken his kindness to the living and to the dead. She's grateful for the kindness. And then for the living and the dead, for her and her daughter, and more importantly, the dead being her husband and her sons. And Naomi said to her, this man is a relation of ours. one of our close relatives. So this is coming up to that kinsman redeemer. And Ruth the Moabitess, again, we're highlighting her Moabitessness, said, he also said to me, you shall stay close by my young men until they have finished all my harvest. And Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, it is good, my daughter, that you go out with his young women, and that the people do not meet you in any other field. So she stayed close by the young women of Boaz to glean until the end of barley harvest and wheat harvest, and she dwelt with her mother-in-law. So they go through both harvests. Ruth is staying, working in Boaz's field. So we're going through the barley harvest, and then the wheat harvest comes, so there's a bunch of food that they're going to be able to store up. And then that's kind of like the big picture of this time period. And now we're going to kind of zoom in chapter 3 here. We're going to zoom into this specific event that happens in chapter 3. So then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, my daughter, shall I not seek security for you, that it may be well with you? Now Boaz, whose young woman you were with, is he not our relative? In fact, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Therefore wash yourself and anoint yourself, put on your best garment, and go down to the threshing floor, but do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. Then it shall be, when he lies down, that you shall notice the place where he lies, and you shall go in, uncover his feet, and lie down, and he will tell you what you should do. It's kind of funny. I always love this story. I mean, I kind of read on the history and know some of the culture, but I always like reading this, and when you first read this, until you figure out what that meant, you're kind of like, and I'm wondering how much of this Ruth would have known and understand is some of this. Go and do what? You want me to uncover his feet? That's kind of okay. So, I would have pulled out a feather. And I watched too many Bugs Bunny cartoons, I guess. So, so then it shall be, when he lies down, that you shall notice the place where he lies, and you shall go uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what you should do. And she said to her, all that you say I will do. I love this, right? Here's these crazy instructions. Get dressed up. Now, don't let him see you. Wait for him to pass out after he's enjoyed his food and his drink, and he celebrated the threshing floor. Because on the threshing floor is where they would take the grain and they'd put it there, and then the threshing floor was like a big rock or something, or like cement today, and they would actually grind those sheaves and smash them down, and then they would take like pitchforks and throw up and then the sheaves or the shaft would blow away, and then the good grain would fall back to the ground, and that's how they'd scoop the grain out and get the grain out. And so at the end of the day, the threshing floor would be all his grain, all the fruit of his labor, the treasure, so to speak. You worked hard. This is what you're working hard for, is all this grain, and it was time to celebrate. And so gives her these instructions to go down there. Don't let anybody see you. Get all dolled up, and then go into this guy and then uncover his feet, and then wait and listen to him. And she's like, okay, no questions asked. I trust you. I'm going to do this. I just love it that she's like, you know what? I know you have what's best in mind for me. You displayed that when we first were leaving Moab. You told me to go back home. You cared for me ever since, and I love you. And I'm going to do this. I'm reading a little bit in there because that's not what she actually said. She just said, all that you say I will do. So she went down to the threshing floor and did according to all that her mother-in-law instructed her. And after Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was cheerful, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain. And she came softly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. Now it happened at midnight that the man was startled and turned himself, and there a woman was lying at his feet. And he said, who are you? She answered, I am Ruth, your maidservant. Take your maidservant under your wing, for you are a close relative. And then he said, blessed are you, the Lord, my daughter, for you have shown more kindness at the end than in the beginning, that you did not go after young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you all that you request. For all the people of my town know that you are a virtuous woman. I really love this, because Ruth definitely knew what was going on. This is like a kind of like a proposal, if you will. The uncovering of the feet was a proposal, because for Boaz being an older man, Ruth being a younger woman, it would have been improper for him to ask her in marriage. So her asking him for his hand in marriage, because that's what she actually said. I am your maidservant under your wing, for you are a close relative. When she's saying that, she's looking for his shelter and his provision, for his care, and saying, hey, you're a close relative. We can do this. This is lawful. This is good. This is what the Lord has instructed us to do. And I love it. He's like, blessed are you of the Lord, my daughter, for you have shown more kindness at the beginning, and that you did not go to young men, whether poor or rich. I'm always intrigued by this statement, right? Because like I always find it kind of convenient that when they come back to the land, here's this wealthy single dude, right? And so I might be reading into the text a little bit. I'm kind of wondering if he was a little, I don't know, maybe hard on the eyes. Just have to speculate because we only got words. But I'm wondering how this guy got to be this. I mean, he is a sweet person. His reapers want to bless him. He's blessing people. He seems like a very good catch, and yet he is this single, wealthy man, and he is grateful that Ruth, who seems like a beautiful young woman, is wanting to marry him. He seems very grateful for that, and he's very grateful, and more importantly, he is grateful that she is a virtuous woman. I love that. That's what his comment about her is. He's going to do it because you are known as a virtuous woman. He's excited about that, and even he thinks it's kind that you did not go after young men, whether poor or rich. Like you could have had your choice of men. Thank you for picking me. And she's excited to pick him, and it's wonderful, and it's glorious. And now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do all for you requested. For all the people of my town know that you are a virtuous woman. Her reputation is out there in the whole town. Now it is true that I am a close relative. However, there is a relative closer than mine. Drama. The hallmark ending has to be paused. But anyways, he says, stay this night. In the morning it shall be that it will be performed the duty of a close relative for you. Let him do it. Let him do it. But if he does not want to perform the duty for you, then I will perform the duty for you. As the Lord lives, lie down until morning. I like this. He's a man of purpose and a man of intent. He knows what he wants. Caesar says yes, and I'm going to resolve this in the morning. We're going to take care of this in the morning. You're either going to be redeemed by him or redeemed by me, but this is going to happen. Not later this week, tomorrow morning when we wake up. And I like it. So he's like, lay down. And so she laid at his feet until morning. She arose before one could recognize another. And then he said, do not let it be known that the woman came to the threshing floor. So he says, go. And he also said, bring the shawl that is on you and hold it. And when he held it, he measured out 6 ephahs of barley. Now, she got 6 ephahs of barley. Maybe this was the 60 pounds, and the first one was only 10 pounds. And laid it on her, and then she went into the city, right? So again, blessing her with food, right? I mean, this was out of his wealth. Just, here, take, go. And I love it. Like, what he's saying she's doing, right? Not, are you sure? Not questioning, just, yes. All right, I love the plan. Let's work together. Teamwork makes the dream work, right? And so when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, is that you, my daughter? And then she told her all that the man had done for her. And she said, these are 6 ephahs of barley he gave me, for he said to me, do not go empty-handed to your mother-in-law. And then she said, sit still, my daughter, until you know how the matter will turn out. For the man will not rest until he has concluded the matter this day. I love it. Naomi sees the gift and knows what's up and knows the gift, knows the generosity of the gift, understands Boaz's intentions, and says, sit still. Boaz has got this. Now Boaz, I like this part of the story too. Boaz went up to the gate. It's kind of like town hall, if you will, to the courthouse. That's where the gate and all the elders of the city hung out is at the gate, and they would decide things and discuss things there. So he went up to the gate and sat down there, and behold, the close relative of whom Boaz had spoken came by. I like this too. There's something about this close relative. So Boaz said, "Come aside, friend. Sit down here." So he came aside and sat down. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, "Sit down here." So they sat down. And then he said to the close relative, "Naomi, who has come back from the country of Moab, sold a piece of land which belonged to our brother Elimelech. And I thought to inform you, saying, buy it back in the presence of the inhabitants and the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, redeem it. But if you will not redeem it, then tell me that I may know, for there is no one but you to redeem it, and I am next after you." And he said, "I will redeem it." Then Boaz said, "On the day you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you must also buy it from Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to perpetuate the name of the dead through his inheritance." I like that. He's like, "Oh, by the way, there's a catch. You get the Moabite woman for a wife." Now, this gentleman here, the close relative, said, "I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I ruin my own inheritance. You redeem my right of redemption for yourself, for I cannot redeem it." Notice what's going on here. This guy, has he got a name? No. Nor should he have a name. Now this was a custom in former times in Israel concerning redeeming and exchanging. To confirm anything, one man took off his sandal and gave it to the other, and this was a confirmation in Israel. So when you read about the kinsman redeemer back in the book of Numbers, when you read about the actual law and the custom of how to do it, when you were redeemed, the woman was supposed to request of the man to redeem her, and if the man had the right to say no. And if he said no, she was supposed to take his sandal off, hit him with it, and spit at him, and he was disgraced. And he was supposed to be known as a man that wouldn't redeem his relative. He was not supposed to be named. And there's a reason why this close relative is not named. And when Boaz addresses him, he says, "Come here, my friend." Right? And I think it's also graceful in that too, that they don't call him out by his name. And they also, more importantly, be graceful to him by saying he took off his sandal and gave it to Boaz instead of having Boaz take it from him. So there's even grace in how there's shame for the close relative. And I just, like I said, in the time of the judges, in the time of all this chaos, you have this beautiful story, and even Boaz is following through on this ritual in a gracious way. And he's honest with him, saying, "Hey, you know what? I can't do this." But the close relative too, the other reason why he's a little stinker here is why he won't do it. He doesn't want to mess up his inheritance. He has children, he has his land, and he doesn't want to jeopardize that by having a child with a Moabite, which I'm sure he's even thinking to himself, "I don't want to marry a Moabite. That kind of doesn't get smiled upon by the Lord. And I don't want to mess up the inheritance for my kids. I don't want to jeopardize what my kids have, because I don't want that son being the firstborn and having rights to my land as well." So he's being selfish. He's looking out for himself, and yeah, there is shame in that. But even then, as he is shamed, we don't get his name. We don't get to gossip about him. We just know him as a close relative, and even then, he's referred to as friend. And so, therefore, the close relative said to Boaz, "Buy it for yourself." So he took off his sandal, and Boaz said to the elders and all the people, "You are witnesses this day. I have bought all that was Elimelech's and all that was Chilion's and Mahlon's from the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the widow of Mahlon, I have acquired as my wife, to perpetuate the name of the dead through his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brethren and from his position at the gate. You are witnesses this day." So Boaz went out that morning, as he said, took care of business, and he got himself a wife. They didn't even have a wedding ceremony. So and he called out for witnesses, and he said, and he took his expression, and I love this too, because that was part of it. That was part of why Naomi was bitter when she was coming home. No sons, no husband. the family was going to die. That's why she said, "Blessed be the Lord who doesn't forsake his kindness on the living and the dead." There was no sons to carry on, because that family legacy was about family. Not how popular you got, how awesome you are, but about family and raising up a good family to carry on. And so this is what his desire was. And so they respond. And all the people who were at the gate and the elders said, "We are witnesses. The Lord make your woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, the two who built the house of Israel. And may you prosper in Ephrathah and be most famous in Bethlehem." Right? I love this. It's like, may your wife be like the mother of the 12 tribe, Rachel and Leah. It's not like they just picked any names out of the hat. They picked out the mothers of Israel. And they said, they want the Lord to bless them like that. And the elders are seeking the blessing, right? Oh, a special little town of Bethlehem. Even back then, during the time of Judges, was this beautiful little town of Bethlehem. And they continue, "May your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah, because of the offspring which the Lord will give you from this young woman." Remember that story? There's another kind of not so good kinsman redeemer story too. Tamar and Judah. You guys know that story? So Judah, who is one of the 12 tribes, Judah who is supposed to have the scepter, Judah who's in the line of Jesus. He had a couple sons, and the one son married Tamar. He didn't do what was right in front of the Lord. He died. Another brother stepped up, didn't do what was right in front of the Lord. He died. That second son didn't want to have a son. There's kind of more details I'm going to leave out. And he died. And then Judah didn't want his other young son to die and said, "Hey, you know what? Hang out and you wait for him. And when he's of age, I'll let you marry him." And then he kind of didn't do that. And then Tamar kind of took off. And then Tamar went and played the harlot. She got dressed up as a prostitute. And Judah, when he was on the way, stepped in and used her services. Shocking. Bad man, Judah. And then she asked for his signet and his staff, and then she left. And then all of a sudden she comes back and she's pregnant. And they said, "Hey, Judah, this is your daughter-in-law. She's pregnant." And he's like, "Stone her." And then she came out and she said, "Hey, who does this belong to? Because that's the father of this child." And Judah was humbled. And then they had this son, Perez, who was the offspring. And Judah was kind of like the own kinsman redeemer in a really not righteous way. So, and I love it too, right? That we're not, what is great is like they look at it as a blessing. There's, "May your house be like that of the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah." And it's like, this was a blessing, even though Judah was sinful and treated Tamar poorly and was horrible. Perez was a blessing because of the offspring which the Lord will give you from this young woman, right? So it's like Perez was a blessing, and they see that, and they're asking for their child to be a blessing, just like Perez was to Judah and Tamar. And so Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. And when he went in with her, the Lord gave her conception, and she bore a son. 10 years of marriage, no child. Boaz, boom, child. And then the woman said to Naomi, "Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without close relative, and may his name be famous in Israel." Again, just grateful speech, people blessing each other, excited for each other, loving each other during this wicked, chaotic time. And so, "And may he be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age for your daughter-in-law who loves you." I love that too. What's important about the daughter-in-law is she loves you, "who is better to you than 7 sons has borne them." That was a mighty compliment, saying that a woman would be better than 7 sons. 7 sons would be a definite long-lasting legacy, something to be really excited about. So that as you're dead and past, your family carries on. Your legacy carries on. And it's just a wonderful thing. So to call out Ruth's love for Naomi and to say that she's been better. I mean, what I love too is Ruth's character and how she is known. She is known as this virtuous woman who is better than 7 sons. And Naomi took the child and laid her on her bosom and became a nurse to him. So now Naomi gets to be a grandma. How sweet is that? At one point she's changing her name to Mara because she thinks her family is dying and gone and over, and now it's been restored. And also the neighbor woman gave him a name, saying, there is a son born to Naomi, and they called his name Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David. Kind of important. Now this is the genealogy of Perez. Perez begat Perez, the son of Tamar, right? Who Judah, naughty Judah. Now this is the genealogy of Perez. Perez begot Hezron. Hezron begot Ram. Ram begot Amminadab. And Amminadab begot Nasham. And Nasham begot Salom. And Salmon begot Boaz. And Boaz begot Obed. Obed begot Jesse. And Jesse begot David. King David. Good King David. And so, I greatly appreciate the book of Ruth. And I hope you guys enjoyed just a fast overview of it, just refreshing and reminding you. I know we all know the book of Ruth, but sometimes getting back in what we know and just taking the time to breathe it in is just refreshing. And just remember that in the time of the Judges, in the time of this chaos of the book of Judges, when things are just going bad and worse, and for people that like to pull doctrine out of the book of Judges in the context, it seems like a bad idea. That's another story for a different day. But their speech isn't just seasoned because they said, you know what, we should say nice things. Out of your mouth springs from the well forth of your heart, right? So those words are coming out of their hearts. They have pure hearts. They are speaking kind because they are kind. And I think they're kind because of their faith in the Lord and them appreciating the love of the Lord and being conduit of the love of the Lord and understanding the Lord and his provision and his sovereignty cares for them and loves for them. And so it's not just sweet speech because that's what you're supposed to say or that's what you're supposed to do. It's sweet speech because they were sweet. And I think they're sweet because they enjoyed the provision of God. And that's where I want to encourage you guys, because I know usually on Wednesday nights we're talking about prophecy and the doom and gloom and all the bad things are going on in the world and how the one world order is coming into power and how the Israelites are not chasing after God and how the things are aligning. And we're in the time of the Judges. Chaos. People doing everything right in their own eyes, which is evil in the sight of the Lord. But for us, we get to be the Boazes, the Naomis, and the Ruths, and the elders in the gate, and the women, and the men, and the servants, and the reapers, and his women servants, and where we get to bless each other and have kind speech and share that kind speech. And it was known throughout all the town. And so everybody appreciates that. And I think that's one way to attract people to your God, because Ruth forsook her mother and father and the gods of Moab to chase after Naomi and her God. And I'm imagining that's because Naomi was a sweet, graceful woman that praised her Lord and talked about how good her Lord was. Even when she changed her name to Mara, she was still a godly woman that her faith in God didn't. When I know, like a lot of people, when things go wrong and their circumstances get bad, they want to question if there is a God. She didn't question if there was a God. She said there is a God and he's afflicting me. She shouldn't have went to Moab in the first place. But that's where I wanted to encourage you guys. I mean, you're here on a Wednesday night because you love the Lord. And I hope you found this encouraging. I hope you enjoyed. And I hope that it's more conviction to go out there and be blessing to each other and ask the Lord's blessing. I love that. Like, I know ever since I was convicted by that when I was studying that for my last class and studying about Boaz, saying that to his servants as he first addressed them, I've been a lot more cognizant of that, and it was huge conviction to me. But just remembering to recognize people for their good qualities, talk about what they're doing right, and share with them the loving things and sweet speech coming out of a heart that trusts in the Lord and seeks the refuge under his wing. Because, I mean, let's face it, that's where we need to be these days. Because, I mean, as pastor says it from the pulpit. He's waiting for the day when the First Amendment speech doesn't apply to churches anymore. I know as I watch what's happening in the collegiate landscape, and I'm worried about my seminary and how long it's going to be there as laws get formed and everything else. It's going to squeeze them out of the finances that they need to operate. And as we watch everything holding up. But it's not time to give in to the chaos. It's not time to give in to the anger and the hate and respond in hate to the world that wants to hate us, but to respond in kind to each other and love each other. So with that, we got 10 minutes before 8 o'clock. We have your praise sheets. We didn't have time to pray beforehand, so we can pray. And then when you're done praying, it's time to, you guys can, when you get done praying, you can go take off, and that'll be it. So I'm just going to close this time in prayer real quick, and then we can pray for each other. And then when you're done praying, you can enjoy your evenings.